He only wanted a quiet meal. No cameras, no attention, just peace. But the moment he walked into that restaurant, 4 men saw only his skin, not his worth. They didn't know his name, his story, or the truth that would shatter their pride. What they did know was hate, and they unleashed it without hesitation. But when the truth came out, the entire room froze. Who was the black teen they had just tried to destroy? It was supposed to be just another evening out. Marcus, a 17-year-old black teen, had grown up learning to keep his head down, to work hard, and to stay out of trouble. That night, he wasn't dressed like someone the world would recognize. No expensive clothes, no security around him. Just a hoodie, sneakers, and the hunger of a teenager looking for dinner. He chose a quiet restaurant on the edge of town, a place where no one knew his last name, and that's exactly how he liked it. To everyone around, he was just another kid, unnoticed and ordinary. But what Marcus carried inside was far from ordinary. And as he sat down at that corner table, unaware of the eyes that had already locked onto him, the stage was set for something that would reveal more than anyone was ready to face. Marcus barely noticed the way the room shifted when he walked in. He was used to stares, used to the weight of people deciding who he was before he even spoke. At first it was subtle, a waitress hesitating before handing him a menu, a couple at the next table whispering just loud enough for him to hear. He ignored it. He always did. But not everyone was willing to let him sit in peace. From across the room, 4 men leaned back in their chairs, watching him. They were older, dressed like they'd come straight from a construction site, loud, brash, and already several drinks in. To them, Marcus wasn't just another customer. He was a target. Their laughter grew sharper, their words heavier, as if daring him to look up and acknowledge them. It started with muttered comments, the kind meant to cut without being heard clearly. Doesn't belong here. Wrong place. Wrong face. Each remark landed like a stone, but Marcus kept his eyes down, focusing on the plate in front of him. Years of experience had taught him silence was safer than confrontation, but silence didn't shield him for long. One of the men stood, his boots thudding against the wooden floor as he walked closer. He circled Marcus's table like a predator, pretending to stretch, leaning in just enough to invade his space. The others laughed, pounding the table, urging him on. The restaurant grew quieter, eyes turning, but no one moved to intervene. Marcus's heart pounded, though his expression remained calm. He knew what could happen if he reacted. The headlines, the blame, the endless cycle of he should have done this or he shouldn't have done that. So he stayed still. But stillness was not what they wanted. The first shove came quick, knocking his fork to the floor. A second followed, harder this time, sending his drink spilling across the table. Gasps filled the air, but the room froze. Watchers, not defenders. Marcus's chest tightened. He could feel the storm building, the moment spiraling out of control. And then, as if on cue, all 4 men surrounded him. Their voices rose, accusations spilling out, claims that he didn't belong, that he was trespassing where he shouldn't be. The words didn't matter. What mattered was the venom in their tone, the fire in their eyes. Marcus looked around, searching for a lifeline, for someone, anyone to step in. But the crowd's silence was louder than the men's shouts. In that instant, he wasn't just a teenager. He was every stereotype they wanted him to be, every excuse they'd use later to justify what came next. His hands trembled under the table, but his resolve held firm. They had no idea who he really was. No idea that the very person they were humiliating had the power to change their lives in ways they couldn't imagine. But for now, he stayed quiet, waiting for the right moment. The tension grew unbearable. Every second stretched longer, every laugh from the men sharper, every glance from the crowd colder, and just as Marcus thought it couldn't escalate further, one of them reached for him. The moment the man's hand grabbed his shoulder, everything unraveled. Chairs scraped, glasses toppled, and suddenly Marcus was on his feet, surrounded. The 4 men shoved and barked accusations, their voices echoing off the restaurant walls like a mob closing in. Their fists clenched, their rage boiling over, not because of anything he'd done, but because of who they believed he was. The crowd's silence was deafening. Eyes wide, phones out, but no one moved to help. Marcus could feel every heartbeat in his chest like a drum of survival. He had been in tense situations before, but never like this. Never cornered, never so publicly stripped of his humanity. One man lunged, knocking him backward against the table. Pain shot through his ribs, but Marcus steadied himself. He wasn't afraid of bruises. He was afraid of what they represented. He was afraid that in this room, filled with strangers, his life could be decided in seconds, and no one would step in to stop it. The men shouted louder now, spitting words of hate, calling him out, branding him as less than human. Their fists rose, ready to strike harder, to leave scars deeper than skin. For Marcus, the world seemed to slow. His breath shortened, his vision narrowed, and for a split second he wondered, is this how it ends? And then, with one final shove, he stumbled forward, his hood slipping back, the light catching his face just as a waiter dropped a tray in shock. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Recognition spread like fire. The whispers turned into stunned silence. The men froze, fists still raised, eyes widening as if they had just seen a ghost. Because in that instant, the truth was undeniable. The restaurant stood in stunned silence. The four men who had been so loud, so certain in their cruelty, now stumbled backward as the truth settled over them. Marcus wasn't just a teenager in a hoodie. He was the heir to one of the nation's largest fortunes, a billionaire's son whose name carried power they could never have imagined. In an instant, the men who mocked him were exposed, their hate laid bare for the entire room to see. But for Marcus, the reveal brought no satisfaction. The bruises on his body didn't vanish. The humiliation, the fear, the pain of being judged by skin before character, it all remained. Because what cut deepest wasn't that they attacked him without knowing who he was. It was that they attacked him because they thought they did. The crowd, once silent, now whispered in guilt and shame. But where were those voices minutes earlier, when he needed them most? That question hung heavier than the silence itself. Marcus walked out of the restaurant not as a billionaire, not as a victim, but as a reminder of how fragile dignity becomes when society decides worth is tied to appearance. And isn't that the truth that lingers far beyond this single night? That every day, countless others face the same stares, the same judgment, the same violence, without the safety net of wealth or recognition to shield them. Their stories don't make headlines. They don't stop rooms cold, but they are real. So ask yourself, how many more Marcuses must it take before silence